Well, hello there. How are you, Jackie?
Angry.
I think that is a good place to start with this game. All right. Well, hey folks, thanks for joining us for our TCR live post game. Evan couldn't join tonight, but it's me and Jackie to hold down the fort. We appreciate those of you who are checking in, hanging out with us. Man, oh man. All right. So, I mean, we'll get into it, but obviously losing at this point, being 3-6 in the season, we'll talk about what that means for the season. I think we're probably on a similar page. We'll talk about what went wrong in this game, a few things that went right. We're probably going to lean heavily on what y'all in the chat want to talk about. So we'll get to you, Jackie. Aside from having to deal with this game, how are you?
Personally, I'm good. It's just it's really frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm almost at a loss for words because a roster this talented can't go anywhere. They can't move. They can't do anything. It's this is a complete disaster.
Yeah, I agree. There's too many talented playmakers. There's too many little mistakes that are just kind of botching it all. So we're going to get to all of that. We're going to take your comments in the chat. We're going to talk about what right or wrong. Real quick, let me say hey to some of the folks that are in the chat. We got Nick L. Price is a dud. Man, that was a rough game for sure. We got GW Wow, new member. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Definitely appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've got John Roars. It's time to make Vance Joseph the head coach. I mean, listen, the defense, we'll talk about the score doesn't necessarily reflect how the defense played. We'll talk about that a bit, but they actually played pretty well through most of the game. We have Silver Bowl Hazy clown shoes. Yeah. Yeah. We got Classy Nasty. Dang, thanks for being here. We got Easy No Steroids, absolute ass. It ain't even on Kliff. I mean, I would actually agree. This wasn't like he can't control a lot of the. I mean, I guess if you want to argue that the in the practice, but like they've got like 3 offensive linemen starting for them that weren't starting earlier this year, so that's really tough. Real quick, we have a super chat. Jason, thank you so much. Joe, please admit that Kliff and Keim need to go. Jackie, I'm going to let you start, but what do you think about Kliff and Keim? And then I will certainly give my thoughts on that to Jason.
Do they need to go? Absolutely. Will they go? It remains to be seen. Because you double down, you give them both contract extensions before the year starts, even though Michael Bidwell was supposedly so disappointed in how last season ended. But you doubled down, you paid him. You made your bed. Are you going to lie in it? Or are you going to right your wrong? I was just talking to my husband prior to jumping on with you. At what point does Michael Bidwell hold somebody accountable? Like, as an owner, why are you okay with seeing this?
Yeah, it is absolutely frustrating. I'm going to say I'm not going to lead the march to say they need to go, but I'm on board with it. I'm fine with it. Like, I mean, I'm a preach patience kind of a guy. At minimum, I would say, let's see how the season ends. Seattle's a really good team, but we've lost some games we shouldn't lose. But if let's just say this, if they got fired after this game, I would not be saying it was a mistake by Michael Bidwell. So I'm not going to jump on board with the Fire Kliff bandwagon in terms of carrying the signs and the pitchforks. But if I'm not going to argue with anyone who thinks they need to go. And if they go at the end of the season, I'm like, yeah, let's have a fresh start. I'm ready for that. So yeah. Oh, it's frustrating. We got a couple other folks who want to say hey to. Lucas Rothplitz. I hope I didn't mess it up. 5-12. I mean, it's trending that way, right? We got Arjun. This team is bad. And we're as we were Kaio's rookie season. It's looking like that, right? We got Sam Mooring. Sorry, apologize if I mispronounced your name. Lack of discipline whenever could build our trenches to win games. We should clean house. Kliff and Keim need to go. Give Murray motivators coach and try again. I would have no problems with it. So much of this was on the line, the offensive line, really. And we can talk about that more. Let me get to a couple other. We got a couple super chats and stickers. I want to say thank you to Back to Constitution. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. Sincerely appreciate that. We've got Moose PK, go Hawks. All right, well, congratulations. So listen, you're gonna pay me. I'll certainly at least say congratulations. So thank you for the super chat. Listen, but in all seriousness, listen, coming into this year, I thought Seattle was the last place team. And I know, Seahawks fans will kind of, pump their chests out about, yeah, you're wrong. We were wrong, but Geno Smith, based on what we've seen from up to him at this point in his career, we had reason to think they were a last place team. They were starting a lot of rookies. Like any rational person looking at this team would think they would be a last place team, but this kudos to, Pete Carroll, kudos to Geno Smith, kudos to all the coaches and the heck of a draft class they had. I mean, I've looked at that draft class. They have so many players across the board contributing. So my hat's off to Seattle. They I was wrong about them, and so was most everyone except Seattle fans, to be honest, was picking them to be last. So hats off to them, right?
Hey, but listen to what you just said. Pete Carroll's a good coach, and they drafted well.
Yeah, and listen, I give you credit. Yeah. No, LO, you're right. We thought we'd be last place too. So congratulations to you and your team. They're division rivals, so I'm not going to root for you, but I hope you as a person enjoy this season, as a fan of the Seahawks, and then Cruz, Ispiro, season over now. I'm a Bills fan. Listen, I don't fault you. All right. Let me say thank you to everyone for the super chats. All right, Jackie, let's get some of your thoughts there. We'll get to some of the more comments in the chat as we go. Thank you everyone for being here. All right. Why don't we just kind of let's knock out our studs and duds. We don't have to go back and forth. Just tell me give me who played well for you and who were the duds. And then we can just kind of get into some of our observations from this game.
Okay. Well, I mean, there was a lot more duds and there were studs. So I'll start with a stud of he's always been my stud from the beginning, is Budda Baker, being a heat-seeking missile everywhere on the field, hitting dudes hard. Of course, I got to shout out Zaven Collins. A definite surprise from when you drafted him to where he is now. He got himself his first pick six. Same thing. He's been in on every play. I thought James Conner first half was a dud for me. Second half turned it on, starting to look like the same James Conner that we've seen at the beginning of the season prior to injury. So that's good that we got him going. With a stud, man, I thought that Robbie Anderson was going to come in and make a better impact than AJ Green, and he has been a disappointment for sure.
Yeah.
And it sucks. You'd think this would be a fresh start for him, given his issues and what he could bring to this offense. He's fast and he's big, and we have not seen it to fruition.
100%. I agree with all those folks that you've mentioned there. Absolutely. Like Zaven was that pick six, that dude is good. For sure. I had Zach Allen as a stud. He made some nice plays, Benjamin had a couple nice tough runs, I think. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say the defense in general, I know they gave up 31 points. You say that's a bad showing, but like they kept this team in it and they just got gassed at the end. When the offense can't keep the ball moving, there's a point where the defense just can't keep. I mean, they did the best they could. They kept this game close. And when the offense just keeps going 3 and outs and fumbles and 3 and outs, it's asking too much of the defense to stop Seattle's offense for the whole game. So I actually think the defense played well, but there was just a point where like, we can't carry it anymore for you guys, and the offensive. But yeah, the duds, I mean, that Robbie Anderson had the one catch for -4 yards, and he dropped that catch on 3rd and 4, I think it was, in the last 2 minutes of the first half. Yeah, had a penalty, but like the biggest thing was that dropped wide open target that was right before Kyler had that fumble, right? Kyler might not have had to run and fumble that, if it weren't for that, if he had made that catch. And like the offensive line, the penalties all throughout the game. I mean, constantly. I know we get really tired of hearing Kliff Kingsbury, talk about the not executing and the little things, but I don't like put this game like on Kliff. It's just like, and Kyler had the bad fumble, but other than that, I mean, he played reasonably well. In fact, played pretty well. But like just the penalties and giving up the sacks, it just kept, and the high snaps, and like it just got to the point where like they just couldn't keep anything going. And Billy Price, those 2 high snaps in the first quarter alone. I mean, the offensive line just kept kind of, sabotaging the drives. And
absolutely, that is a big hinder on our team. And exactly what you said, these slow starts really hurt us throughout the whole game, because our defense, I don't expect a whole lot out of them, given that the personnel that we have to work with. Vance makes great adjustments. They play their asses off. But then when the offense starts to come alive in this hurry up situation towards the end of the game, they can't hold anymore. They're getting gassed. This is why it's very important to start off faster. But at this point, at this state of the season, I think it's over.
As Sam has said it, Jackie's closet behind her is much more organized than our offensive line.
Right? Exactly. Those are my kids' clothes.
Right. So, can either of your kids play center, or can any of your kids play center?
Yeah.
No, they can't. Oh, darn it.
No.
Yeah, it's and listen, folks think it's over, and Crowley's asking, what do you think our chances to make the playoffs? We talked about this. I talked about this last week. I listen, folks who watch like my videos know that like I'm I tend to lean towards optimism. But I think this was their season. Yep. Mathematically, we're not out of it. But this team would have to go pretty much run the table for the rest of the season. Maybe could afford to lose one game. There's such a logjam in the NFC. And now they've got 2 losses to Seattle. So like our division record isn't good. I just think, there's a mathematical chance, but practically I think we're out of it. I think this was the end of our season. Do you have any? I mean, yeah. What do you think about that, Jackie? Your thoughts in terms of this, where we stand as far as playoffs?
Yeah, like you said, mathematically we're not out, but it's going to take a miraculous effort on both sides of the ball, as well as coaching, to get us to the playoffs. But even if we do make the playoffs with that little thin chance, we could, wild card spot, we're going to get the doors blown off of us. We're not a playoff team. And, I don't have confidence in Kliff being a playoff coach. That was the question mark for the last couple of years. What can Kliff do in the playoffs? We saw what Kliff did in the playoffs. Looked totally unprepared, like he's never been there before, which he hasn't. So that's what kind of hurts about having a young coach.
Yeah.
It's I guess we can save ourselves from having to see get the doors blown off in the playoffs. Yeah,
for sure. Aaron Van Buren, I just want to clarify, you saying this is on Kliff, Joey. Well, okay, first of all, Keim brought in Keim assembled the staff. Now I think you're responding when I said this was on Kliff, I meant this game. Kliff, you could argue at a big picture that a lot of the roster decisions on Kliff, absolutely. It's more that this game, it wasn't Kliff's play calling, in my opinion, or even like they didn't mess up the timeouts, right? They actually had timeouts in that 2-minute drive, and they were getting the plays in. You can argue it's on Kliff in the big picture preparation, but that's not what I was talking about. And again, to the Kugler point, when they hired Kliff, actually Keim assembled his coaching staff because he had come from college. So that's just, if you look back to that. But just to clarify, right? So yeah, I think, I feel like, and this game isn't on Kliff. There's a lot of things that are on Kliff, right? But it's frustrating, and it's tough because again we keep hearing the same stuff from Kliff, Kingsbury, about they just couldn't execute. It's the little things, but that's really what this game was. It was the little things. Like the defense kept putting them in a position to win, and the offense couldn't keep the ball going. They would fumble snaps. They would just make those little plays. And like you said, there's too many there's too much talent, at least in terms of the playmakers on this team, for this team to be this bad. So I don't know. So if it's you, Jackie, what are you doing with this team? If somehow or other, you own this team right now, what are you doing now and moving forward?
I'm cleaning house. I'm starting over with the new coach. I've already doubled down on my quarterback, who I feel has talent and potential. That he just needs some coaching up, someone that can motivate him to be better, challenge him to be better. Getting a competent GM that can either draft. This is supposed to be a win now situation, and we don't have the talent around that. We doubled down. We did keep a solid core, double down on some guys, but it really comes back to the off season when the lack of moves you made. Trade deadline came and gone. We held. We drafted a tight end in the second round, which cool. Yeah, I'm sure he's got loads of potential at some point. But like I said, win now situation, build the trench, because that's what we need to win games. Build the trenches.
Yeah. So it sounds like you want to clean house on the coaching staff, but you want to keep Kyler and build around Kyler. What are your thoughts on Vance Joseph?
Vance has done a serviceable job with the cards he's been dealt. The soft zone does get exploited here and there. And, like we mentioned, the players are just getting tired. So I would still keep Vance as an offensive coordinator, but he's not going to be my head coach. We need an offensive-minded head coach for Kyler.
Yeah. This is the tricky thing, because when you hire a new coach, if they do that, usually that coach wants to bring in their own staff. Yeah. So sometimes they might be willing to retain someone. I think what I've been saying is that Vance Joseph has done a good job, but not good enough that I want him to be the head coach next year. If they fired Kliff and he was the interim head coach, great. I think he'd do a fine job of that. He's done a good job as defensive coordinator, but if you've got to bring someone in, they're going to want to bring in their guys. And there are other defensive coordinators who will that could come in and do well. So I think Vance is probably, aside from maybe if he's in an interim, if they fire Kliff, during the season, then aside from that, I think he'd be probably having to walk too. And as far as firing Kliff, if that were to happen, I've been saying, I want to kind of wait to the end of the season, but there is one caveat to that. There is a new rule that's been imposed the last couple of years in the NFL, where if you fire your coach before the season ends or before the last 2 weeks, I think you can get a head start on interviewing candidates. But your coach has to have been fired though before that point. So, so maybe if maybe coming out of the bye, if this team's really bad, maybe we will see a move. If they decide they want, to have the head start. And, it's tough. Like, a lot of people saying Adrian Wilson. I love Adrian Wilson, and I'd love to see him get a chance at GMM. The tough part is like a general manager position is not like a player position in terms of, I hope he would be good and I like him and he's worked hard to earn his way up the ranks, but we don't know if Adrian Wilson would be a GM, right? I think the argument is, well, he can't be worse than Keim, but until we see him do the job, we don't know. We're not inside the building, so we don't know how he is at the skill sets for that. but I really love I love him as a player. I love the way he's worked, his tail off, right? So yeah, something's got to change, and I think you know hopefully our pride doesn't get in the way. We need to tank for high draft picks, then trade down for more picks, completely rebuild the roster, give Kyler an NFL offensive coordinator, not a college one. Yeah, I think I'm done with college coaches in the NFL. None of them are like, I was talking with, I think last week with Troy, I think on our live stream, like Kliff's actually one of the more successful college coaches in terms of his NFL tenure. And that's a low bar, so.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's shocking to me.
Yeah. Folks in the chat, observations from the game, anything we haven't talked about, players that stood out, things you want to mention, questions, comments from the game, get them in the chat. Try, if you got anything, we're seeing a lot of, and I get, a lot of folks, let's see. Oh, here we go. Firecliff, I'm done. Yeah, I feel that, right? But let's see if you've got some other observations in addition to Firecliff.
Or
and
Keim.
Jackie, while we're letting folks get stuff in the chat, do you have any other observations from the game? Anything else that you want to mention from what you saw, or about the state of the Cardinals in general?
With the way the offensive line is looking, we're never gonna win another game. It's so hard to be optimistic at this point because we don't have time to throw. We don't have the blocking for the run game. Outside of that defensive touchdown, we weren't going to get back into it. Defense is looking stellar. If somehow they just score all the points from here on out, maybe we'll have a shot. But I don't know. Like I mentioned before we went live, all of my notes, they could be from any given game because it's all the same. It's all the same stuff. Self-inflicted things. These wacky behind the line of scrimmage plays that don't work. They're not doing it for us. A little hiccup with, communication, a Kyler turnover, a drop pass, defense getting gassed, rinse and repeat. This team is very repetitive. It's predictable. So something has to change.
For sure. Absolutely. Real quick, Cruz with the super chat. Thank you so much. And you mentioned Cruz earlier. I saw in the chat. I just didn't get a chance to respond, asking you how to become a channel member. I put a link there for if you want to become a channel member to help, support the channel. So thank you again for that. Any O-line prospects you have an interest in? So Cruz, I'm going to admit to you, I don't start looking at draft prospects at this point. When the season ends, I start getting into that. So I really don't have anyone specifically in mind. I'll tell you in our Discord chat, Corey Red Sea probably could tell you a bunch of folks that if you post in our Discord chat a question about offensive line prospect, I assure you Corey will give you a nice, extensive, exhaustive list of them. But I will tell you, I feel like this team needs to draft a center probably on day 2 in rounds 2 or 3. What I am hearing is there's not really any center prospects that are looking like first-round prospects at this point. You can get really good centers on day 2. They need to do that. With guard, it's tricky because you've got Will Hernandez. Okay, I mean, he's looked good. I want to bring him back. Cody Ford has struggled. Does he show enough by the end of the season to bring him back? I don't know. Marquise Hayes is a guy they drafted, looked good in preseason and got injured. Lysita Smith, he's getting a few snaps. They'll probably, I think they need to probably re-sign Will Hernandez, draft a center, let Rodney Hudson walk. He's a great player, but if he's not going to be playing, you need to have someone who you can depend on being there, and then maybe sign a veteran free agent guard and see between that person and Hayes and Lysita Smith and Cody Ford who earns the other spot. What do you think about what are your thoughts on that, Jackie?
No, I absolutely agree. Or even if I don't really look into prospects as well for the draft until about a month prior to the draft. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to college football to say, hey, that guy's doing great. Let's draft him. And we haven't had a lot of luck with drafting O-linemen in the first round outside of DJ Humphries.
Mm-hmm.
But build the line. Absolutely build these lines. We need Kyler Murray needs an offensive line before he decides to up and retire early like Andrew Luck did.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Josh Jones has looked good when he's played. So I think I have a feeling he's going to be the right tackle next year. It's that interior they've got to pick up, right? Let's get some of the comments and questions. Vera, Visor, Lara. I never know what that 3 Viper, Lara. I don't know what that 3 is supposed to be. I'm not up to speed with things. I'm not one of the young folks. But I apologize for not knowing how to say your name. Is Will Hernandez hurt? Yeah, he was out like in the first quarter. What I hear was a chest injury. If anyone's got any updates on the injury, let me know. But yeah, he was out. I don't know how long. I don't know anything more than that. But yeah, Jordan P saying, Oli had the worst game I've ever seen in my life. It was rough, right? Yeah, for sure. A couple other comments, trying to get through. I know someone mentioned, obviously Zaven looked great. I mean, that kid is good. I'm really glad to see him. I know a lot, and I'm not taking a shot at you, Jack. I know you were one of the people who thought he wasn't, you were down on him.
I was a Zaven hater.
You were a Zaven hater, but he's redeemed himself. Yep. A lot of people were calling him a bust, and listen, I was preaching patience. Give him, he was good. I figured he was going to start this year, and let's see what he does. And he's looked really good. So I'm glad to see, he's one of the bright, like in the preseason with all the consternation there was about Zaven Collins, the fact that he's one of the players we're not worried about right now, one of the few bright spots, right, is really nice to see. So for sure, right? Yeah. Raphael saying, even if Kliff called a better game, Kyler doesn't have it in him to win game. See, and Raphael, I know you've been, I know you're tough on Kyler. I'm a believer in Kyler, so I think he does have it. Yeah,
he does
respectfully
have it to
disagree. I think he's making lemon out of lemonade or lemonade out of lemons, right? He's making. Now there's some bad plays. That fumble was bad. He's got to hold on to that ball better. There's things I want to see him get better at, but like with that offensive line, I think he's doing he was making something out of nothing. Cameron Thomas is looking good 100%. He had some nice plays in there. It was nice to see him in there. Right. Louis Padilla, Larry Fitzgerald for head coach. I can tell you, Larry doesn't want that noise. Larry's got his sights probably set on bigger things, entrepreneurial or political.
Owner.
Yeah. He'll be a team owner. And I know a lot of fans would rather see that. Right.
Yeah.
This is a good question. AJ Bazan. Is this the last year of Hop? And you probably saw that there were reports that a lot of teams were sniffing around for Hopkins come the trade deadline. And, the Cardinals did not move. They didn't either. They weren't interested in trading him, or there wasn't a good enough offer. He's got a couple years left on his deal. It's a big contract. He's getting older, but we've seen how good he is. In his first 2 games back, this game wasn't as good, but he had that really nice touchdown. And let's see, what did he finish? He finished with 4 for 36 and a touchdown. So it wasn't his best game, but I don't think that was all on him. They weren't really targeting him as much either. But what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think this is his last year. However, if we're in a position next year where we're starting out the same with no hopes of getting any better, we still have the same coach and GM. I guess I would say he's worth letting go so he can go on to win, because he doesn't deserve this. Because we thought we were going to be contenders to the point where we thought, we get this huge weapon, best wide receiver in the game, we're going to win a Super Bowl. It's just not happening. I don't want to waste his time or his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you don't let a player like him go. He's too good. We've seen what this offense has been without him versus with him. I'm excited to see what this offense could be with, Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Rondale Moore, and an offensive line that gives them time to make stuff happen. I think you build around that. You just need to fix that offensive line. In fact, like, I think if you could fix this offensive line, like, you've got enough pieces on defense that can get it done. It'd be nice to add some pieces, but you don't need, like, if you just had a good offensive line, this defense has kept you in enough games, even with the rookies, even with the injuries, even with the question marks on the roster. You just need that. You need to have that offensive line fixed so that so the offensive weapons can actually get it done. You need them healthy, but like, yeah, Hopkins and Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore, I want to see those on the three on the field together with Kyler, with an offensive line that's getting their job done. So I think you keep them around as well. So yeah, I
would love for him to retire Cardinal. Don't get me wrong. I want Hopkins to be here forever. But I just see Larry Fitzgerald being true and loyal to the very end. And I wish that he would have gotten a championship. I wish we would have brought him the championship. But to me, he's just one of those players that like deserves it.
Yeah. For sure. So let's see other thoughts. I'm just checking the comments. I mean, the Anderson trade was a whiff. He's been worse than AJ Green so far. He's nothing. We've got nothing from him. This is, at this point, you think he's in the games, but he's dropping passes and, it's just not worked out like we had hoped. Right. I think he's going to be a 1-year rental, and it's a rental that doesn't do anything for us. It's really disappointing. Maybe we'll see him make a few plays, but people can compare him to AJ Green, and it's kind of filmed like that. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on Robbie Anderson other than?
I was really excited for him, and it's very disappointing that he's not panned out the way we wanted. And I thought, okay, give him a game or two, and he'll kind of get acclimated to the offense. My thing though with that though is, I guess, this Kliff. Why are we throwing a screen pass to him? This is a big man; he can get downfield. Why the screen pass? The drop pass, I will blame him, but come on.
Yeah, that drop pass was awful. The screen pass, that just, I mean, we already see too many screen passes, but if you're going to do a screen pass, I mean, as much as people are tired of seeing it, Rondale Moore is the guy for screen passes because he's the guy who can make something out of that. Robbie Anderson right now should just be doing deep and intermediate routes, except, if he's not catching them, what are you going to do with that, right? Jordan P saying, I'll give up Hop if it means an elite offensive line at this point. I mean, if you could guarantee that you get that, I mean, I'm not going to say no. I just don't think you can trade him for that. I think you can. I also think you can build an elite offensive line if you focus on that without trading Hopkins. But you've got to invest stuff in it, right? So, yeah. If Cattle Dog saying if we did trade him, it would be at least 3 picks for a new GM. I mean, I think at that point, hopefully there'd be a different GM making those picks. It's just tough though, because, like Bidwell is just he's tight with Keim. They go back, and Keim came up through the organization, worked his way up as a scout. So
we're married to him at this point.
It feels like that, right? So I don't know. If I would be impressed if Michael Bidwell fires Keim because with that big contract and with the fact that they're tight like that, I would have a lot of respect if he made that move, because it would be a tough move to make.
Absolutely. That shows that you care. That shows that, friendship aside, this is my franchise. We need to win. He should be embarrassed. I was watching the game, and I'm thinking, what are they chatting or chanting? And I'm listening close. They're doing Seahawks chants in our own stadium. This was a home game. That should piss you off as an owner.
Oh, are you there?
I'm there.
Sorry. I had my stuff was cycling. I couldn't hear anything. Yeah. So yeah, it's frustrating. Marcos, I'm so tired of the Vance and defense apologists. I see other defenses getting off the field when the team needs to stop. They ran the ball. I mean, I respect your tape study and the work you do, Marcos. I still think that. I mean, I think the defense did a good job, and I think down the end, I mean, the offense just didn't. The offense couldn't keep things driving. They kept the defense way on there too long. They just got gassed. So I respectfully disagree, and that's okay. I think the defense did a good job. Got off the field. They were getting stuff done, but then in the fourth quarter, in particular, when the offense just couldn't do anything, and the defense just kept having to get back on the field without enough time in between. I think that the defense, there was a point where they just were asking too much, right? So yeah, I don't know. That's frustrating though, right? So yeah. Let's see. Want to get to other questions. Someone mentioned earlier Dorsey from Buffalo as a potential head coach candidate. Is it he's a former coach, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo. That would be an interesting name. I just know I don't want another. If they bring in another coach, it needs to be someone who's an offensive coordinator. I think like you said, you want an offensive head coach, but someone from the NFL.
Yeah, we're not bringing in another college coach. Lesson learned. It's got to be an offensive coordinator, somebody that's been in the league for a while, someone that has done a great job with their current team. Because I mean, like I said, it all comes down to coaching. We didn't think Seattle would be anything, and Pete Carroll's doing a fantastic job. Brian Daboll in New York is doing a fantastic job. All comes down to coaching.
Yeah, for sure. All right, folks in the chat, what in terms of players that I'm sorry, in terms of like Hopkins, would you trade Hopkins for draft picks and rebuild, or do you want to build around? So that's the first question I want to ask for folks in the chat. And then the second is in terms of coaches, if we were to fire Kliff, do you have any coaches that you would like them to bring in? So I want to get those two questions and comments. Jackie, I think we both agreed we wouldn't trade Hopkins if it were up to us. We
not
would
for picks, anyways.
Right.
Or this year. Yeah,
right.
After this year now.
Yeah. Let's go back in time and get Brian Daboll. Right. Yeah, I mean, he's done a hell of a job with the Giants. That is a guy who, and that's the kind of coach you want to get, right? Jordan P is saying, Ken Dorsey, the guy in Buffalo who I was talking about, is the only one he would want to go for. I think that's going to be the next guy. A lot of people say Sean Payton, right? Now the thing with Sean Payton that you have to remember with him is because of the situation, he retired with years on his contract. We would have to trade for him. So there would be draft compensation, and you think something like that's a second round pick, but you're hearing people say that they would want a first round pick for him. So for me, I'm not. I mean, as much as I think Sean Payton's a really good coach, I think I'd rather go with a coordinator than give up that draft capital.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about the Sean Payton thing?
Well, biasly, I dislike Sean Payton for the whole Bountygate thing. I would be open to him being a coach. However, he's also had some very average seasons with the Saints with Drew Brees as quarterback. So it's not like he's had this elite record. Is it an upgrade from Kliff? Absolutely. Yeah. But if there's somebody better out there that's a coordinator, we don't have to give up anything for, I say go for it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would rather go for a coordinator that we're not going to have to trade a draft pick for. Sam saying, is Eric Bieniemy available? He is. Now, Eric Bieniemy is an interesting one because, folks have been saying, for years he's deserved a head coaching opportunity. He's been passed up. And the tough part is you also hear things behind the scenes, though, that players don't love him and that there's reasons. And so I'm a little iffy on that. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think
There's some strong-willed guys in our locker room that if he's the type of coach that would argue or blame players, I don't think that's a recipe for success.
yeah. So I think that's maybe I mean I'm sensitive. I know I don't want to get too into the political side of things. I'm sensitive to the fact I'm a sociologist by day. That's my job. So I'm sensitive to the fact that there are structural issues with underrepresented minority groups in terms of coaching opportunities. So I don't want to just be dismissive of that. I think that is a real problem in the NFL. And I think a lot of people think that's why Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job. But I think with him, there's some other stuff. I really think there's some behind the scenes personality stuff that it's just that it's not that, right? Now, you look at there's the guy. Well, you would have said Brian Leftwich, except it might have been the next guy that you might look at, except Tampa Bay is really struggling, right? So,
he's been our interim offensive coordinator as well. So we've already kind of explored that at some point. So that's a no thank you for me.
And I think this is an interesting name, though. Mike LaFleur, he's the offensive coordinator with the Jets, right? I believe he's the brother of Matt LaFleur. Jets, an overperforming team. He might really be, a candidate to look at, right? And and maybe Byron Leftwich still deserves, right, to have a chance, even though he's struggled this year, right? But he wasn't great when he was here, but I think he's made he learned under Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay, but this year it's a little bit rough, so I'm not so sure. Leslie Frazier, that's an interesting name, a guy who's been around for a little bit, who's had a head coaching opportunity before, right? Stop ignoring Roy Two Trip, Jim Caldwell. Stop ignoring me, Roy. Sorry, there are upwards of 100 folks in here, so I'm not trying to ignore you. There's just a lot of chat comments. Mike Kafka, is he with Philadelphia? Is he the offensive coordinator, I believe, with the Eagles?
Not sure. You'd have to look that up for me.
I'm going to look that up. No, he's wait. No, Wikipedia, he was with the Giants. Where is he now? He is New York Giants offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's under Dable. You give up. I just commented. I just showed your comment. What do you mean you give up? Don't. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, listen, Mike Kafka with Brian Dable, that could be a candidate, right? Yeah. Let's see. Mikey would rather have. Sorry. Leftwich. Okay. So yeah. What we really need, Joe, is John Wick. who's he's taken out? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So sorry. Stop ignoring you too, Grandizer. You promote Vance Joseph to head coach, hire Jason Garrett for OC, and Baba Booey and you and Jackie too. Oh man. No, I don't think I want Jason Garrett. he's no.
No way.
No. I mean, if you promote Vance Joseph and bring an offensive coordinator, maybe, but that's not my first choice, right? But Cruz, thank you for the super chat. New head coach, but must keep Vance and Buddy. Our strength and conditioning coach, I believe. Maybe, right? Mark Jackson, anyone but Kliff, right? Also, he's saying, what about Lincoln Riley? Man, he's a great college coach, but I'm out on college coaches. What do you think, Jackie?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm out on college coaches. I know that was Kyler's college coach, but they just don't translate well to the NFL. We saw the disaster that was Jacksonville, and what's his face? I can't even think of his name now.
Urban Meyer.
Yeah, him. And then Nick Saban had a coaching job at one point, but I think that college coaches are really good at what they do, and that's coach college football. This is a different game.
Yeah, for sure. Kellen Moore, is he still in Dallas as the offensive coordinator? That might be an interesting name. I think he'll be a head coach at some point, right?
Right.
So yeah, these Jim Harbaugh would be the only college coach I would accept. Jim Harbaugh, here's the thing. He's successful, but he wears out his welcome. He just grates on people. He's just like, the thing you keep hearing about him is his personality just runs its course after a year or two, and then he's out, right? So
I would take it if it guaranteed us a Super Bowl. We
I mean, listen, yeah, I'd take just about any coach aside from someone with ethical issues if you could tell me it'd be a Super Bowl, right? So, yeah, for sure. All right, so I think, let's see, Jim Caldwell would be awesome offensive coordinator, but honestly, he deserves to be a head coach. I mean, Caldwell's a guy a lot of people say needs another chance. You know, he's been a good veteran head coach. Maybe he might be the kind of guy they need here, right? Could be, right?
I would explore it at this point. Why not? Anybody that has veteran experience in the league is fine with me.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think you want someone offensively minded, but maybe that calming voice of a veteran coach, someone like Jim Caldwell, you know, rather than kind of the latest, you know, hot shot coordinator might be a good fit. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's what you need. Like, you know, someone like, you know, who's going to just maybe have a little bit more, you know, the wisdom of age in terms of
leadership
and someone who maybe, you know, knows how to kind of be a little more patient, but have that kind of sage wisdom approach towards working with his quarterback, right? And such, right? So yeah, I don't know. Yes. All right. Well, we've got about 45 minutes, and that's frustrating. I think we're all kind of in this place, right? Bring in the Cardinal rule seems like a good candidate. There you go. Yeah, not for coach. I couldn't coach my way out of a wet paper bag. I could not coach my way out of a wet paper bag.
And that'll be your offensive coordinator.
There we go. We're in trouble with maybe your salvages, but you know, I'd love to be in a front office, but I don't have the experience. I wouldn't do a good job yet. I'd need to learn a lot, but it would be fun, right? But yeah. All right. It's a frustrating loss, fans. I think Jack and I both kind of feel like, I think most Cardinals fans feel like at 3-6 in this crowded NFC with so many teams fighting for the wild card and so much parity, feels like this was the season for the Cardinals. I mean, mathematically they have a chance, but it feels like this is it. And it's tough because like this loss 21-31 to what is actually a very good team. If the Cardinals were, you know, 4-4, you know, like I wouldn't look at this game and say it was the worst loss. You lost against a good team, and Seattle, you know, Seattle's winning. But, you know, with the situation the Cardinals are in, it was kind of it. This was their playoffs, right? You know, this was it for them, and they couldn't win it. They couldn't get it done. You know, so you know, in a vacuum, it's not the worst loss in a vacuum, but based on the timing and where things are for the Cardinals, it's the final nail, I feel like, in the coffin for their season.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, right? But yeah, this is it, right? So anything else you want to say before we get out of here? We're gonna wrap this up in momentarily.
I just want to say thank you, Arizona Cardinals. I found some gray hairs this morning when I was combing my hair. I blame you. But from this point forward, we can watch these games knowing that there's no hope for playoffs. And, you know, maybe we could be a little more calm and kind of hope that some of the individual players can have good individual performances for stat purposes. So that's what I'll be looking forward to. It's just, you know, maybe DeAndre Hopkins will have a 1,000-yard season despite missing 6 games. Maybe Kyler Murray will tie the touchdown record and still lose. Who knows?
I'm going to be watching the young players, seeing how they look out there, right? The rookies and seeing how they develop, and seeing which the players that that are in contract years, right? That are, you know, that the Cardinals are going to need to make a decision about retaining. You know, do we see anything from Cody Ford that tells us we should try to bring him back on a budget deal? Do we see enough from Will Hernandez to think he's the right guard of the future? Do we see enough from the young pass rushers that we feel like we don't need to draft one early, that we can let them take over next year? What do we see, from Isaiah Simmons for the rest of the year? He's been up and down. Do we see, that's what I'm going to be watching for moving forward, right? So real quick, Cruz, thank you again so much for the super chat. You've been so generous. A Peyton, not Sean Payton, but Peyton Manning. Who says no? Next head coach. Peyton Manning is the next head coach.
I would love it.
It'd be entertaining, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's another guy who has no interest in getting into coaching. He's making plenty of money doing his Manning cast, and it's a lot less work than coaching. But he's got the mind for it. I mean, as a head coach, he was one of those guys that, as a quarterback, he's one of those guys who made all the adjustments. He was the chess player, right?
Yeah.
Who saw the chessboard. And I think if he really wanted to, he could do that. But I don't think he's the person I think says no is Peyton Manning. That's who I think says no. Yeah. So
I would love it though. Football IQ is off the charts.
Right. So listen, I apologize I couldn't get to the comments from everyone. We had upwards of 100 folks in here, so that was really great. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. I tried to get some of the comments as I could. Jackie, thank you for being here. Folks, make sure subscribe to her Red Zone Redbird podcast YouTube channel. The link's below. Follow her on Twitter. Anything else that you want to shout out that you're working on right now?
No, I'm just working on another piece for AZ Sports Underground. This will be centered around Zaven Collins, so that should be out within a day or two. But yeah, definitely check me out with my co-host Mac and Will. Wednesdays we go live 9:30, 9 Eastern Standard Time. It's a not safe for work, rated R. Just kind of vent about the game. We try to make it funny because we're miserable Cardinals fans, but if we can make you laugh, hey, come hang out with us.
It's a fun time. Whenever I can, I try to hang out in the chat with y'all, and it's a good time hanging out. So definitely check them out. For sure. Obviously, you all know where to find me, the Cardinal Rule. Please follow me on Twitter. I've got my handle below. Please be sure to, smash the like button. That definitely helps. If you're in here, again, commenting on videos and hitting like really helps with the algorithm and helps people find the channel. And also, I did, hopefully most of you probably seen this. I did a video that was something completely different. I did a kind of tried to have a little fun with the Kliff Kingsbury bingo. So I did sort of a comedy video. Check that out. Did you enjoy that?
I did. That was hilarious.
Okay. It's whenever I do something different like that, it doesn't get as many views because it's just, most people subscribe probably more for straight up Cardinals talk. So, the video's not getting as many views as normal, but I kind of anticipated that. But it's a fun video. Check it out for a laugh. About Kliff, and after this game, I'm sure that the Kliff bingo thing. Yeah, Kliff bingo was hilarious. I also shared the Kliff bingo cards on Twitter. So if you go to my Twitter, I've actually put up 4 different ones. So 4 different ones with them all mixed up, so you can actually play Kliff bingo competitively with your friends. So as I said, the Kliff bingo, the most competitive game in the Red Sea. Because we know the Cardinals games aren't. So anyway, thank you all for hanging out with us. I heard someone mention that he mentioned Kliff bingo, and so it's starting to become part of the discourse around the Cardinals. So, that's kind of cool. So, thank you all for hanging out with us. I know it's a disappointing game, and it's been a disappointing season. We'll keep doing our Cardinal Rule conversations post game and such. We'll be here for you to help commiserate as we get through the season, and when the off season gets around, we'll start doing some stuff looking ahead. The season feels like it's ended already. It's ended too soon, but yeah, it's that. What I don't know what more there is to say about that. So, anything you want to say before we head out, Jackie?
Go Cards.
Go Cards. Yeah. Thank you all for hanging out. I'm going to put up my member shout outs and we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys. We'll see y'all later. Peace.